can't stop just now. It's that time again. It's Baggy Hi-Fi time. Greetings cats and kittens, welcome once again to another episode of Baggy Hi-Fi, this YouTube channel devoted to record collecting and the vinyl community in the UK. It's been maybe about a week since I made my last video. I've been quite busy with work. Lots and lots of videos appearing on YouTube at the moment as people seem to have more time. It's quite hard to keep up with them, but lots of interesting records being shown. In this video I'm going to go way back in time. And if I use the two phrases swinging 60s and summer of love, then you'll know what decade I'm talking about. A time of great creativity in the UK, a very exciting time. Makes you think of Carnaby Street and Mary Quant, the Marquee, all those places where fantastic bands used to play, like The Who, the Small Faces, Pink Floyd, the UFO Club. It's all captured in this book here, which I recommend before I go any further. That's White Bicycles by Joe Boyd, a really interesting read. Subtitled Making Music in the 60s, 1960s, very interesting. So yeah, we're talking about the 60s in this video, records from the 60s. But I'm not going to talk about any of those great bands that I just mentioned, like The Who and the Small Faces and the Pink Floyd, Syd Barrett's Pink Floyd, or even any of the more obscure bands who are on these great compilations, like that one and the Bam Caruso Rubble series. I'm going to talk about the second division, or even really the third division of the swinging 60s. I'm going to talk about two budget label records which came out towards the end of the 60s. Now I think you have to remember, in the 60s not everyone was affluent and not everyone could really afford many records. So budget labels started to appear. I'm sure you record collectors are familiar with, if you're going into charity shops with budget labels, Music for Pleasure, that kind of thing, a Contour label. Also in the 70s, of course, was a great time for budget labels, for 99 pence records. The Top of the Pop series, which featured sound-alikes of chart hits played by session musicians, and famous story, of course, that Elton John played on some of those Top of the Pops albums. But I'm going a little bit further back, as I mentioned, to the 60s with the Saga label. And the Saga Records was formed, just looking at my notes, in the 1950s when Major Wilfred Alonzo Banks took over Saga Films Limited and Joe Meek's Triumph label and the RGM Sound Company. So the catalogue was acquired in 1960, and they released records as Boulevard in the 70s. The two records I'm going to show on the Saga label are, first of all, this one, Swinging London, which has gained quite a cult following over the years. It's an album you used to see in charity shops, but no more really. You don't come across this much anymore. It doesn't really command high prices on Discogs, but that's probably the place where you'll find it. The artists credited are Russ Sainty and The First Impression, but there's another band on here called The Good Earth, and they're not really credited in the track listing here. And The Good Earth were a band who came together in 1969, and they featured Ray Dorset. Later on, they would become Mungo Jerry, who had the amazingly big hit in the summertime in the early 70s. Yeah, so get a load of the this cover photo. Look at these young wild things, these ravers from Swinging London. I think a photo like this was meant to attract buyers for 99 pence, or well, this is pre-decimalisation money. Maybe this was something like 29 shillings. To get a vicarious thrill out of buying a record like this, and in a sense, buying into swinging London scene, even if you lived in Grimsby or Scunthorpe. It's not an album of sound-alike tracks. There are some cover versions on it. There's versions of the Beatles' I Feel Fine, Help and Can't Buy Me Love. But the best tracks on here really are the ones written by either The First Impression, Russ Sainty, or The Good Earth. I think one of the highlights is the title track, Swing in London. Towards the end of the 60s, musicians were certainly taking themselves a lot more seriously, and the hippies would have really looked down on a record like this as being, you know, a cash-in by capitalists trying to make a buck out of the underground. But 50 years on, we look at things a lot differently, and I think it's a great snapshot of the era. I think the best tracks, as I just mentioned, are the non-cover versions, and really probably the best track on the whole album is Young Man Seeks Interesting Job. Now Russ Sainty, who is a bit of a cabaret style singer, has a very earnest singing style, which kind of brings a smile to your face, and you need to hear an extract of this, especially the line 5-0 levels, very good at games, excellent at meeting all classes and remembering names. This is a CV in beat music. And another piece of trivia about that song, Young Man Seeks Interesting Job, is that 80s Liverpool indie band It's Immaterial did a cover version of Young Man Seeks Interesting Job as their first 7-inch single. So this album's had quite a cult following over the years. Certainly recommend it. It won't cost you a lot of money to buy. The other album on the Saga label, which I'm going to talk about, is this one, Beat Club. Now this LP, Beat Club, also on the Saga record label, doesn't feature The Good Earth or Russ Sainty like Swing in London. It just features one band, The First Impression. I'll just read you from the sleeve notes. What can you say about the 12 great beat hits of 1967? Only that on this LP you have 12 big numbers, all of which made the charts in a very big way during this year. You may be surprised to see the last waltz on this record, but when you hear the arrangement and listen to what the boys have done, you'll agree it gives even this oft-played opus a new lease of life. The songs are great, top London beat group The First Impression are great, and the doors of the Beat Club are wide open. So there you are, all cover versions of songs from The Summer of Love, 1967. Part of the charm of this record is not really as strong as Swing in London, is the very polite cover versions. I mean, there's some nice cheesy organ, some nice farfisa, some nice playing, The singing is sort of tentative and polite, especially the version of San Francisco, which I'll play a needle drop of. I'm a Believer, quite a good cover version. There is a version of Puppet on a String, which is just instrumental. That's taken at quite kind of a ska rhythm pace. I'm going to risk doing a needle drop of their version, an odd version medley of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which segues into the Tremolos' Silence is Golden. That could be blocked though by YouTube, and Paul McCartney's lawyers might come round and sentence me to a life sentence, so I'm going to risk it and see what happens. But yeah, so Beat Club by The First Impression, also on the Saga label. If you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. If you're going to San Francisco, you're going to meet some gentle people there. So they're just two releases on the budget Saga label from the late 60s. Are there any other records worth recommending on this label? Well, a lot of the material on Saga was classical, licensed classical music. Leslie Crowther recorded an album on Saga. You remember Leslie Crowther from, if you're a certain age, from Crackerjack, and also perhaps from The Price is Right. But also on the Saga label are two bands which are much sought after by UK Psych music collectors, and they are Magic Mixture and 5 Day Week Straw People. Out of all the releases on the Saga label, they are the ones that fetch the high prices, and rightly so, because they are good pop psych albums. And by the way, you might the name Saga might ring a few bells with you. Saga the company do continue as that company who provide holidays and insurance to the over 65s. So those two records I do recommend if you are interested in British 60s music, pop psych. They're not Ogden's Nut Gone Flake or Odyssey and Oracle at all, but nevertheless they do have their own charm, curious charm. So that's the end of this video now. I hope to make another one quite soon. Thanks for all your subscriptions and your comments. I do enjoy reading them and also replying to them. So for now, take care. Bye for now.